Hi, everyone. Stephen Fletcher here again with episode 38 of the EvoFi podcast, a finance podcast for humans. This episode, we're talking to Eric Ashe and Liz Kane from Vintage Boxing Gym. We're talking about the benefits of creating a plan and sticking to it. Eric Ashe is the head coach and owner of Vintage Boxing and is a matchmaker and commentator for River City Promotions. He has a long history with boxing with over 30 years experience in the sport. Eric's love for boxing began while watching matches with his grandfather as a kid, and now he enjoys running Vintage Boxing to pass on his knowledge and passion for the sport. After training and managing professional fighters, Eric pursued his matchmaker license to begin hosting professional boxing events. He's excited to set up pro fights for River City Promotions in hopes of bringing boxing back to Richmond, Virginia. Liz Kane is the general manager of Vintage Boxing and CEO and managing promoter for River City Promotions. She has over 24 years of experience in the business, and she's helped with efficiencies and company growth. These skills have also carried over to success in organizing small community-based fight parties to large-scale sanctioned amateur boxing events with over 600 average attendees. A quick reminder before we jump in, this podcast is 100% free of any tax, legal, or investment advice. Our goal here is education and a little fun. If you need advice on any of the specific areas mentioned, tailored to you, please reach out and we would be happy to help. Lastly, if you haven't already, check us out on YouTube and Instagram. We'd love to hear more from you. Now, let's get to it. All right, so Eric and Liz, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having
us.
us.
Thanks for having us, buddy.
All right, so to jump in here, we're going to start with what we call our little Evo 5. And so these are just our 5 icebreaker questions. So I'll ask them, and then you both can take turns answering. So number 1, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Okay, I guess I'll start. I would love to be a jewelry designer. I have an affinity for jewelry. Absolutely love it.
Sorry for you, Eric.
Yeah. It's tough life. Hence, we're broke.
Which is great because you're on a financial podcast. Sounds like we picked our guests well.
We start from the bottom up here.
Oh my goodness.
So for me, I tell you, I'm like an entrepreneur for life. So I've every time I feel like that I want to do something different, we start a different business. And we recently started a pool cleaning company. So, because we couldn't find a good pool company guy to come clean our pools. So it's like, if I was going to do another business or profession, I started a Coconut Express company. Oh, did coconuts from Miami and bring them up and sell them at all the festivals.
He loves coconuts, yes. He's tried this before.
I've been trying to do it.
Coconuts in Cary Town. He did it for a weekend, yeah.
Yeah, I did it for a weekend, and then I sold the rest of them to like little Latino markets.
Did you have like a cart on the corner? Or
I just sat down in Cary Town, and I had a cooler full of coconuts, and I just served them out to people.
That's cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a long time ago, though.
It was, yeah.
Did you have hair back then?
No.
Okay.
No.
It wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago. It's like 5 or 6 years.
That's pretty cool. I had no idea.
It was fun, yeah. So I don't really have a pick for a profession, but that might be something I dabble in.
Nice. All right. Number 2, what would you do differently if you knew no one would judge you?
Well, I was kind of kidding before, but I'm going to say it again because I guess I was a little bit serious. Drink more red wine. Yeah. I do enjoy a glass of wine like almost every night. It just feels good.
I wouldn't judge you for that.
Thank you.
What would you do differently if you knew no one would judge you? I don't have one. Nothing. I really don't. Yeah. I love boxing. Yeah. I'm gonna do what I do. And I don't care if anybody judges me. With anything. I think I'm good on the moral compass aspect. Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
That's a good answer. I've never gotten that answer before. That's pretty good.
That is good.
Nothing.
I'm
not surprised, though. That's great.
All right. What's one thing you have not done that you really want to do? And what's holding you back from doing it?
One thing that I haven't done. I mean, one thing that I would really love to do is just travel the world. I mean, I've gone to a few places, but nothing beats traveling. An experience is something that you just can't beat.
Yep. Different cultures.
Where would that be? You have anywhere in mind? You're like, man, Eric, this is the first stop.
I would like to go to Spain.
Maybe not
Portugal.
Eric. I don't know.
Yeah, we've been talking about going to Portugal. Yeah.
I heard it's beautiful there.
Yeah. So.
For me, I never had a professional fight. We got a couple of postponements for fights when I turned pro. So that would be something that I do. But my age is holding me back now. I'm old.
I don't know.
He still talks about it.
Yeah,
Like,
I still talk about it all the time.
yeah,
You
it's
could
like,
put that on the card, couldn't you?
I
You
could.
have like female
I could.
fights. Now you could have senior fights.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He wants. I told him I could. There's no way I could handle
I've
running the
mentioned
promotion
it and
that
I've been
night.
serious about it.
And-
And she's like, no, you are not going to do this.
Yeah, I'm already stressed enough for the events. Like if he's
Right.
fighting too, I mean, because anything can happen. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
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 Nick, thank you.
Unless I was there, because I could be your opponent, and then
Stop.
you could ensure that he'd be fine.
No.
Oh, man.
But I would like to do that.
Yeah. All right. And number 4, when we say greatest of all time, the GOAT, this could be in business, sports, entertainment, the GOAT, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I would think Michael Jordan, that his legacy is with Nike and what they've created. Now, I know he's been in some bad business deals, but I mean, that's probably the best contracted deal that I can think of.
Yeah.
It's funny. Ever since we've done, this is what, episode 38, and no one has ever said Michael Jordan. Isn't that
Really?
amazing?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no.
As someone from North Carolina, I like that answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anytime someone brings up LeBron, I'm like, 6-0 in the finals.
Right.
Come on.
Oh,
Come
right.
on.
It's
Well, I'm just thinking about the Air Jordan deal.
Yeah.
Like it's $1 billion deal.
Yeah,
And he
brilliant.
did it at 21 or 22 years old.
Yeah.
It's kind of impressive.
He's extremely impressive. Yeah.
Michael Jordan, if you're listening and you'd like a financial planner or to get into
Yeah.
boxing,
Right.
you've got your people right here.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. Where does Jordan live? Does he live in
Well,
North Carolina now?
Chicago. I think does he live in Chicago?
I know he has a place on Lake Norman in Chicago, or in North Carolina, because
Okay.
my
Yeah.
parents or my brother and sister always say, there's Michael Jordan's house, but
Nice.
Okay.
or did. But yeah, I don't know. He's probably got lots of places.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's
That's true.
all over.
Yeah.
I don't think Liz answered. Did you?
I did not.
What's your goat? You can't say Eric, by the way.
Well, he isn't. I'm just kidding. Wow. I mean that. Gosh, that is a tough one. I mean, I do like the Michael Jordan answer, but
You should go with Don King.
he keeps making fun of me since I'm the promoter that I should dress up as Don King
Yeah.
for one of our events. That will never happen. But
It'd be a hit.
I was trying to think of some business, like some women that are impressive. I mean, this one's kind of weird, but just popped into my head. Martha Stewart. I mean, she's been through a lot. She's done a lot.
Yeah.
Survived
Time.
prison. Yeah.
Yeah.
And still came back strong. Who does that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
She's
buddies with
not
Snoop.
Snoop Dogg.
With Snoop.
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
deals.
So yeah,
And that's
she's
not necessarily sports related, but definitely entertainment business.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
That's a good one. We haven't had that one before either, but that seems like a really good idea.
Yeah, it's a random one.
You guys are solid.
Thanks.
All right. So this is the last one.
Yeah. The
So-
last one is Name That Tune.
So I'm a little rusty on the production part of this, but so I would always have the fifth one be a name that tune in the theme of the podcast.
Okay.
So we've put one together for you. I know how you like the rap music, so I wanted to.
I guess you don't.
No, I do. In fact, this song is really great. Okay. But this may test your skill here. So let's see. I'm going to put it up on my mic, and hopefully you can hear it.
Okay.
I'm going to give you about 10 seconds, and then we'll see what we think. All right, here we go.
I got this. Yeah, I got it. Roy Jones Jr.
That's
Yeah.
right. That is Roy Jones Jr. featuring
up.
Mr.
Yeah.
something or other. I got to get my notes on my pocket for this
Yeah.
one. Right?
Yeah.
Huh?
That was
Featuring Mr. Magic and Trouble.
yeah. He walked out to that song.
Former heavyweight
fights.
champ.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
One of the greatest of all time, for sure.
Can't be touched.
Has anyone ever gotten the Name That Tune before, John?
Very few, because I usually pick really remote songs like
Right.
this one.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would've got
I figured you might know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he knows like every song.
Well,
We do have a playlist on the podcast, so you'll be able to listen to all of our songs that we've ever put out there.
That's
Nice.
It starts from like "Take This Job and Shove It" to Roy Jones Jr. There's a lot of
That's
fun ones
fantastic.
out there. So
a great selection.
there's confidence right at the. I mean, that was definitely the fastest. Nice work.
I
there.
love it.
All right.
Kudos.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so here we are, Financial Planning Podcast, and we're talking to vintage boxing gyms, Eric and Liz. And so you might kind of be thinking like, okay, why? How are we similar, right? Well, and I think there's something really obvious that sticks out, and that's we're financial planners. We help people come up with a plan. And I'm assuming that coming up with a plan is a pretty big part of training your fighters and getting them ready to face an opponent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's our topic for today. Benefit of sticking with a plan and how we come up with plans, when we need to change them, why we change them, what we change them to, and the benefits that come from that. So just to jump in here, Eric and Liz, if you could maybe just take a minute or two and kind of lay the groundwork. So, how did you get to where you are now in Vintage Boxing Gym, and who are the fighters that you're working with? I know you guys work with a few pros.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We talk about the story of the gym, how we started.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we started this about 12 years ago, and I was teaching out of the original gym that I started with as a teenager, and just doing private lessons. And it quickly grew into having like 40 people coming to that spot. So we outgrew that pretty quick, and then we actually moved to Scott's Addition, our first location off of Roseneath. And that was another garage setup. And then we end up getting to about 120 people in that location. And then I was given the opportunity to move to the location we're at now at 1202 Arthur Ashe. With, like I said, about 120 people when we started there. We took over the front room, and in the back there was a CrossFit-ish gym back there, and they were kind of fizzling out. I think the owner kind of lost his drive, and then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we didn't know what to do at first. I mean, I was kind of going
scary.
bananas because I'm not used to sitting down too long anyway. So it's like we decided to keep the gym open, like undercover, and people started coming to the gym that were normal members, and once the gym was given permission to be open legally, we really took off. I mean, it was one of those situations where we had it. COVID gave us time to get our processes in place, and during that time, Liz and I, and we also had another person that was helping out as management. We really took a lot of our afternoons going over our marketing plans, how to set everything up through Google and our websites, and making sure that people were checked in properly. Collections processes were put in place. Anything for day to day that's scheduled out, we all took part of it. So it was a 3-person team doing it at the beginning.
How many members do you have now?
Almost 600.
Yeah, wow, awesome.
So we're closing in on 600. I think
Yep.
actually in the next 2 months we'll be past the 600 mark.
That's our goal.
Yeah, that's our goal for. So through that time, and we've definitely had a lot of attrition through our employment. Like we've been going through just to try to find the right management. I mean, it's really taken a lot of. It's tough to find good talent, and I feel like we put a lot of pressure on our people to make sure that everything's run right, and I want to be the best. When we're set up, and when people walk through the door, like John, you come to train with me, I want to make sure that the scheduling is right. I want to make sure that there's no hiccups in our schedule. Like John shows up and we don't have a person there to train him. That's a bad thing. Like we want to make sure all our trainers or our coaches are in alignment with the same mission that I have, and that's to take care of our clients, and they're number one. And I think we've had that mindset from the get-go where, I'm willing to be at the gym all day long training as long as it takes to make sure people get their workout in for the day. You know, and then I want people to have the same passion about boxing as I do that are there. You know? So.
Can you talk a little bit about, Liz, about River City Promotions?
Yeah. So, I mean, River City Promotions, we were kind of going through the same process. Like almost every night we sit down and talk about, you know, what we're going to do better for the next event. Even after each event, the first thing we do is we come home and we watch it on TV, you know, and, you know, and isn't it until maybe like the third time I watch it that I really get to enjoy like the actual fights. Yeah. During the events, I'm not actually watching it either, but I'm more like analyzing everything that's going on. But Eric and I spend a lot of time just being creative, talking to each other, bouncing ideas off of each other. And one of the big things is, you know, from the gym standpoint and from River City Promotions, we look at other companies that are similar to ours and what they're doing differently. And maybe we'll do the same thing, but we're going to do it better. Or we're like, why are they doing that? That's not working. Like there are a lot of combat gyms that aren't open in the middle of the day. We're open all day long from 8 to 8. Yeah. From 6 to 8. And, you know, when I was passing out flyers for one of our events, I was, you know, going by jiu-jitsu gyms and things like that. People that are interested in combat sports that might come to our boxing events. Half of them were closed. It was crazy. I'm like, how are these people making money? Or one gym was open. There were just members in there, but no one that works there. They're like, oh, I'm the volunteer member that just unlocks the door for everybody. It's like, this is so different.
Well, I think there are a lot of like the gym concept or the combat gym concept locally and nationally, just the experience of traveling and being involved in this so long. It's still run as a part-time job. Like it's not, and I know people take offense to this, but I don't really care. It's if you're gonna say you're a professional trainer, then you need to do this as a full-time job. And you got to step up and really commit, because if you are a financial advisor during the day and a boxing coach in the evening, you're a volunteer. Even if you're getting paid, you're still just a volunteer, right? You have to be fully committed and have skin in the game and know that I have to pay my bills through this occupation. And when you get involved in an occupation and you say, this is my career, you don't want to be mid-range or mediocre at your career. You want to be the best. You know, and I think that's what sets us apart is we're fully committed to this. This is what we do all day long. And that's why we're able to say that we're professionals. And
not to mention, you also live and breathe, you know, the life of a boxer too. So he practices everything that he preaches to anyone that comes into the gym, even the professional fighters, you know, it's like, why'd you miss a day? Like, he hasn't missed a day. He's there every single day.
And I think holding everybody accountable is very important. And I think right now in our society, and there's definitely generational reasons because of the situation we're in, is there's zero accountability. As parents now, we let kids get away with more stuff, you know, and I'm guilty of it as well. My kids are not as active as I'd like them to be. But as a society, it's a problem. You know, we're letting, you know, we're not holding our children accountable for things. We're not holding our employees accountable because we're afraid to lose people. And I'm in the same boat. You know, we get good people and we're like, wow, man, this guy's awesome. And all of a sudden, didn't show up for a lesson. Well, man, I got a mad client and I've got a guy that I really like a lot, but he's late all the time. How do you solve this issue, right? Do you, as an employer, walk the line and say, hey, man, pat him on the back, can you show up on time? Or you be like, hey, look, next time you do that, you're out of here. I don't care. I don't care if you're a good coach or not, but we have to set standards. And I think, you know, I get pumped up watching like Nick Saban, you know, making these awesome quotes and stuff. I'm like, dude, that guy's a badass. Yeah. I want to be like that. That's the way you should be as a coach. You know, you have to hold people accountable. And then as an employer, you have to hold your employees accountable, you know. And sometimes you lose people that way, you know, and I've definitely gone through a lot of people by holding a hard line. And I think that it only makes our company stronger that way.
Yeah, we learn from each person, each experience, you know, and we just keep leveling up.
Yeah. Well, there was three things that you said in that kind of intro to the gym, which was awesome. that I just want to circle back to. One thing was when you said that COVID gave you the time to get your processes in place.
Yes.
I think that's a really important piece, which is like, it's not, okay, ready, shoot, aim.
Right.
Right. That process is never going to result in what you want it to result in.
Yes.
You've got to take that time at the front end. But I think another thing that kind of shows is the mindset that you have, right? Instead of looking at COVID and going, oh, I'm just going to play the blame game and we're in a bad place because of something that was outside of our control, it's flipped.
Yeah.
COVID gave us the opportunity to do something and you made it positive and work for you, which I think is awesome. But then two other things are just that commitment to the plan.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in financial planning, it's the same thing. And if you're going to lay out a plan for any plan that you create, if you're not going to be committed to it, what's the point?
Exactly.
You know, and you can't be half in, half out. It's got to be 100% in.
Absolutely.
And accountability.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
That's huge.
we all need somebody helping us. We cannot be the best version of ourselves without somebody else coming alongside and going, hey, you did great here, but let's adjust this other piece over here.
Right. And the way that I look at it as a financial planner is exactly the way I would look at a coach. That's having a financial planner guides you in the right direction, right? And me as a coach, I'm trying to guide my athletes in the right direction through experience. And you have a whole lot more experience in the financial field than I do, of course. So it's like, it's a very similar situation.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're going to go on this next, but I'd be curious to hear more about how you use your experience to prepare your fighters for what's the plan.
Right.
And then specifically, and I'm not going to misquote the Mike Tyson quote about the whole getting punched in the face thing, but what happens when the plan doesn't go the way you think? How do you adjust?
Well, I think just like anything else, you have to pivot and you have to change direction and have a plan B. Like there's things to say with that. Like when you have a plan B, does that mean you quick exit out of a plan A, or how long do you stay with plan A? Right. For me, like right now, I'm going to be in Germany in September for 2 title fights. We have 2 fighters that I'm going to be cornering. Yesterday, I watched 8 fights, back to back, studying the opponents. I have a plan set in place. Now I have to implement that plan with the fighters, so when it comes to situations when things go wrong, I have to have another plan to battle those situations. And that just goes through repetitive training, knowing where to be in position wise in the ring and how to react to certain things that your opponent's doing. And I imagine it's the same way in finance. If the market's in a certain situation, how long do you stick to the plan and how do you get to a safe position to not lose, But for me, and when it comes to fighting, I think we cover all the fundamental basics through training camps, and at the same time we target strategies that will work to our advantage.
So how do you know when it's time to pivot and when it's time to just double down?
Well, I think as far as pivot during a fight, it's round to round. Each fight that you're in, if it's an 8-round fight or a 12-round fight, each round you're going to be dealing different situations. The first 3 rounds might be a different fight from the next 3 rounds, and as a coach, in between each round, there's different adjustments being made. So it might not necessarily change the whole game plan, but just slight adjustments.
Okay. So do you go in with a plan like, hey, round 1's going to be this, round 2 is going to be that?
Well, that's what I study. In the fights, I look at the opponents on how their behavior is the first to third round, and then I dissect the 4th to 6th round.
Yeah.
And see what kind of how their body's holding up. How hard do they come out the first 3 rounds? On average, if you watch 6 of their fights, did they have the same behavior like this first to 3 rounds, or did they have a different game plan? Or is this guy one-dimensional? Is he only going to do one thing the whole time? And if you see people that are able to adapt to adverse situations, then you know you've got a crafty person that's going to be a little bit more dangerous. If you have somebody that just walks straight forward the whole time and is pretty much the same fighter in every fight, then it's a whole lot easier game plan.
Yeah.
But you know, it's just per individual case.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of parallels. I mean, it's controlling your emotions in a situation that you can't really control the other side of it.
Right.
So it's like, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
The thing that I was thinking about as you were talking is how do you get your fighter to follow your advice?
And that comes with trust.
Yeah.
You know, and having somebody's life in your hands, making decisions. I've another coach the other day, not this past event, but the event beforehand. He got super emotional because he felt like he lost his fighter's fight through his own emotions. You know, he got stuck in the game and was acting a fool in the corner, and the referee had to come over and was warning him, and he got his fighter out of the game plan. And he was literally in tears afterwards. He's like, man, I lost the fight for my fighter. And he was very upset about his behavior, and truly he did, you know. So it's like you said, you can't have emotion with this. You have to make decisions on what's happening, and then try to present it to your fighter, because if they trust you, they will listen. You know, and I think that goes with clients as well for you guys, right? You know, but it takes time to build that trust. And you got to be willing to get in the trenches with them and train and put in all the hard work. And if they feel like that you don't know what you're talking about, or you know that you're not credible, they're just going to put one ear out the other. You know? So it makes it. There's some guys that they just don't listen at all.
Yeah,
you're like, what the heck's going on?
I think that's the same in our profession too.
Yeah, it's like
you can only be accountable for so much if if they're not going to follow. Then, but I think some of that's human nature too.
Yeah, it is.
It's not for everybody.
Right.
Just like boxing's not for everybody.
Right.
Myself probably included. But
no,
it's great fitness.
Come on, I love it.
Although I do have to say, we were talking about COVID. I remember training with the surgical mask on.
Yeah.
But sweat over a surgical mask means you can't breathe at all.
No.
Like
I've never been waterboarded before, but I'm guessing that's how it felt.
Well, we had a sign on the door, free waterboard.
I do not miss that at all. So.
Oh man, I like, Eric, what you said there about the pivots are round to round.
Right.
And so when you've gone through all of the time and effort to put a plan in place, you don't just kind of hit that first point of, okay, you're a minute in and they didn't behave exactly how you wanted to. Okay, well, you still got to stick with that plan for a little bit longer, because is that a temporary one-time thing? And that's the same for us. You know, I mean, there are times when you'll have, not that all that we do is investing, but the stock market's really easy because it's so fickle, right? You'll go through a period of time where it's like, is this going to be pointing to a recession? The market's been down for several weeks in a row, and that can't throw you off your game plan. Because just as many times as it continues to go down, there's the same number of times that it goes right back up. And so you take all this time and effort to put the plan together in the first place. And the pivot is not at the first sign of discomfort. When you plan well, then you go, okay, this is the period of time we want to do this plan. And then part of a good planning process is that we're going to go back and we're going to reassess. And so that reassessment is, in that planned meeting that we have coming up, or the reassessment is, in your case, okay, there's the bell. So come back to the corner and let's reassess whether we go out with that same game plan or we move to plan B.
Yes.
Way more parallels here than I thought we had, actually.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
cool.
I love that.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, so, okay, let's kind of continue this conversation, but then let's talk a little bit more about what are those benefits of sticking with the game plan. So you mentioned it's not just the good plan that you're putting in place is not, okay, rounds, all of the rounds we're going to do the same thing. It's the same approach the whole time.
Right.
We've gone through, plan B, and in some instances, depending on the fighter and the situation, plan C. Yeah. Liz, I think as well for the River City promotion, some of this is, okay, we're going to headline this fight. What do you have to do when how do you come up with the different plans? So plan B, plan C. And then maybe you can give us an example of like a time that, okay, we did a really good job with the plan. What was the benefit of sticking with it? What's the outcome when everybody has that full buy-in to the plan? And so you go all the way through that process and maybe it's a success.
Well, I think I'm thinking about River City Promotions more so than Vintage on this, because we're essentially a startup business with River City Promotions, and we've only thrown technically 5 events here in Richmond. We co-promoted one in Mexico, but that was a different situation. From event number 1 to event 5, we've gained so much knowledge and been able to implement so many different processes to make our lives easier. And then, not to say that I think the promotion business is extremely hard, but during that time we've gained some key partners involved with sponsorships that have allowed us to build our budget to have better talent to come into town. It takes time, just like in any business. Like, they always say it takes 5 years to know if you're going to make it. I look at event number 5 might have been like our 5-year.
Yes.
Yeah, because we for
like
sure went through a lot of changes in just the last year and a half or last year and some change, because we started last year, May 15th or May 18th, I think, was our first fight. And that was the first event that we threw was for a title fight.
Yeah. Which is more complicated.
Which is crazy
Started
complicated. Yeah. So we started with a lot of like unknown factors, and I don't think we had the proper advisors at the time that were really trying to help us through the situation. They kind of looked at it as like, oh, this is fresh meat. Let's try to nibble on it as much as we can and get as much money out of the situation as we can, because we don't know how long they're going to be around, right? And through that time, we've gained some really nice alliances with other people in the boxing world, which is extremely hard to find, because there's so many unregulated people in boxing, and there's a lot of side deals back and forth. So we've been able to weed through the people that we want to work with that way. But it's, year 5 for us, or event number 5, I think, is like, wow, we see so many crazy opportunities right now. We've had huge companies offer sponsorships to us that could change the whole landscape of our business. We've had some of our sponsors that have been very supportive, local sponsors here, like yourselves, that have like jumped on board, more than, giving us more than enough money that we need now for the fighters itself to get the talent. And that's a big deal, because we started off with a really small budget, and now we're working with a decent sized budget that we can bring in good talent. And that's where I feel like we've been more successful.
One of the biggest things, though, that I think that we've accomplished through River City Promotions is actually turning the community into boxing lovers. Because our very first event, everyone was excited and stuff like that, but they were mainly excited because, like they knew us, and a lot more people know Eric. And I think that we got a lot of support just like through the gym and everybody that we know. And most of those individuals had never seen a pro boxing fight before. So now we actually have a following, and people actually are now watching boxing, understand boxing, and are loving it. So now when we're throwing the events, like our last event, I cannot tell you how many people came up to me and were like, that was an excellent event. The card was fantastic. Before, people were probably like, what's a card? Or anything like that. So now it's like we're educating people. There aren't pro sports in Richmond, but now boxing, and so I think that's getting people excited, and we're trying to create an experience, like our events are higher end. So, we're trying to really just change things for everybody in Richmond and make things better and helping the local community and stuff like that. But with the promotions company too, going back to like pivoting when it comes to a plan, doing promotions and these events, you're constantly pivoting, so even sometimes I'm like, okay, these are the 5 bad things that could happen. And and these are the ways I'm going to resolve them. Sometimes I don't even think about it. Something goes wrong. I'm like, okay, well, this is what I'm just going to have to do. You know, you just have to make a split decision, and it's
There's
crazy.
a ton of variables involved where you talk about having to make changes right away. You say you have 8 fights, you've got 16 humans you have to deal with and coordinate, traveling, getting here. Last week, for the fights last week, there was huge storms down in Miami. There was flooding going on. We had 2 fighters flying out of Miami. Both the flights got canceled.
Oh, yeah, all flights canceled.
Yes. So the day before the fight, we're like, how are we going to get these guys here?
Yeah.
How, we can't find replacements. If we only had 6 fights on the card, we lose 2 fights, the show's done.
And then one fighter was almost here who was like 2 hours away and his car broke down.
Yeah.
Right before weigh-ins. So he was super late for weigh-ins. Luckily, DPOR waited for him, but we had to send an Uber to go get him. Pivoting.
Right, yeah. Just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah. Not let it rattle you.
Yeah.
Just like any business. You come up, maybe one of your employees is sick for the day. You got to make a change. You got to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, well, this may have come up already, but it's as someone who's got the experience as a trainer, as the business leader, is how much of that. It's one thing to show like, I got this. We've been there before. I'm going to pivot, no problem. Versus how much do you share with the fighter? Like, here's the plan, and here's how much you need to know, and here's how much I got you covered. Like how much? How do you figure out how much you share with your fighters in this case versus?
Well, business wise, we don't talk hardly any business stuff with fighters. Once the contract's signed, it's a done deal, and I try not to revisit anything because I don't want any fickle agreements or disagreements. But when it comes to the fights or opponents or stuff like that, I will share inside information of this guy's sick, or we find out inside stuff about what kind of training he's doing, or has he been training, or the more information we have, any way we can get a competitive advantage, we're doing it. We're going to do it. And that's what it comes in. Boxing is probably one of the weirdest businesses that you can get involved in, because a lot of stuff you're like, what? Why would you do that? It doesn't make any business sense. And I'm still learning it. Every day there's something different I'm learning. And it's, when we first got involved in this, we had to learn a lot about how the fights were organized financially. There's several different ways that you can have a fighter fight for you on your card, and several different ways for them to get paid. There's several different ways that managers pay for fights for their fighters just to get experience. And we've kind of dabbled with a lot of the different payment methods and strategies or structures for payment. And a lot of times now I get, like last night I had 3 phone calls from 3 different managers saying, I want these 2 guys on your next card, and have another guy. Hey, can I get this guy on this card? So it's great. I love when these guys are contacting me. These are all really legit people, but then it's always, well, how do you want to do the deal? Do you want to do a paid bout? Do you want to you want me to match them up? Do you want to do ticket sales? Do you want to do a 50-50 bout with somebody?
So it all varies depending on the individual.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. And what the management strategy is for their fighter. Because we're always talking to the managers, not the fighters. And some managers are building up their fighters' records. And what they do is they do a paid bout, and they pay for their opponent's purse. They pay for the opponent's hotel. They pay for the travel, and their fighter get $1. Right? So the state requires you to pay a minimum of $1 for each fight. The guys that are doing that normally are really good fighters, and they know that they've had their manager, who is essentially their financial planner, tell them, hey, we're going to get you 10 fights. We're going to give you $1,200 to $2,000 a month as a stipend for living costs. We're going to get you an apartment. We're going to have a car for you to drive. But you're not going to get paid anything else for these fights until you get an offer of XYZ. And then we'll recapture all the money that we've invested in you. which is, essentially like investing in a horse, So we, they say we have 10 fights, and over those 10 fights, we average to $4,000 a fight. So we've got $40,000 invested in you. Once you get an offer for $100,000 for a fight, we're going to recapture that $40,000, and then you're going to get your cut, and we're going to get our cut. And it takes a long time to get that. I'm helping advise with 2 different guys now, and right now one of the fighters is up to $200,000 in investment money. He's 18-0, and he still hasn't received an offer big enough to recapture the money. So we're waiting for that offer, and at the same time, we're still continue to paying for fights until we get a $300,000 to $500,000 offer. We're going to stand steady, which is a crazy business model to go by, right? And then you have guys that don't have the financial backing, so different class of fighter that they want to do ticket sales, right? So ticket sales is they sell a certain number of tickets to cover their opponent's cost, all the expenses involved, and then you have a fixed cost or fixed purse involved. It might be $1,200 or $2,000, whatever it is, and that's included in how many tickets they have to sell in order to break even. If they don't reach that ticket amount, then they owe the promotion whatever that figure is. So you work out everybody has got a different deal. So you got 16 people, everyone has a different deal, and you got to be able to, at the end of the night, as soon as they finish fighting, you have to have a check ready for them.
Your point at Liz, does that mean you're in charge of the
she
check?
writes all
I'm the money
checks.
lady. Yeah.
Yeah, she has all the checks.
And that's another thing. They,
Yeah.
some fighters, if they're, from out of the country, they don't want a check. They, they want cash or some Cash App, Venmo, Zelle. I mean,
Yeah, she's walking around like 40 grand in her
everything.
backpack.
I've done that before, like in cash, and I did not like that. I was like holding on to my purse. But now I try to cut a lot of checks rather than cash. But
Well, that's probably a whole separate podcast then, the economics of,
right.
of
It
boxing.
really is, man. It'll
crazy.
blow your mind
Yeah.
the way
It's different.
it's set up, and everybody has a perception of these guys making a ton of money, and really at the club level and local regional level, there's not a lot of money in it for the fighters. Now, the guys that want to go against these really tough guys coming out and the prospects, those are the only ones getting paid. Really good, decent money. You'd be surprised. Like guys that have a record of 5-20, they'll get a check for $5,000 to $10,000 to fight.
Yeah.
And that's what they do for a living. They go to these fights. They're the underdog, and they get paid to fight.
Yeah.
But the guys that are like you would think that are making the money,
Not yet.
those are the ones not making the money yet.
Yeah.
So it's
Stephen,
definitely
how
a
are-
different game.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Stephen, what else we got there? I know we're running short on time, so is there anything else you want to make sure we cover while we've got these lovely guests here?
No, I don't think so. I think this has been, like I said, this has been fantastic. And it's so interesting that there's just kind of those overarching truths, if you will, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's take the time with the plan from the outset. Don't rush that planning process, because that's the foundation you're going to build everything else on. And so if your gym didn't have those systems and processes in place, you couldn't support 600 members.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't be able to do it. Be committed, pivot round to round. It's not pivoting at that first moment. It's pivoting
Small
at those
adjustments, small
at those
adjustments.
planned times, and be accountable. And include the people in the process who are going to be able to hold you accountable. I mean, no fighter can make it to be the world champion without having the right support system around them, just because everybody's got blind spots.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what it's about, is making sure that you have a place that you want to be, you have a goal in mind, but you don't necessarily know every step in order to get there. And so it's working with the right people to make sure that you're coming up with the best plan that you can in order to have the highest chance of success.
Yeah, the correlation's very strong. It's like it's like that in every business, though. And I think it's if if you want to jump ship early, you weren't committed anyways.
Which is most
know?
people, I would say. They get into it because they think it's easy.
Yeah.
Right.
And, and then they wash
Well,
out.
everybody thinks that owning a company is, you can not be there. If you're the owner of the company, you got to be fully committed 24/7.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that, or if you're committed in business, there's no days off. Unfortunately, like you signed up for it. Let's finish the job.
Yeah. All right. Well, if somebody's listening and they go, man, I need to get in contact with these guys, they want to join the gym or they want to start building that, record as a fighter and get in with a coach, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, they can call the gym for Vintage or for River City Promotions or for the recovery room. They can call 804-500-7769.
It's a nice radio voice.
I think I do have a
Maybe
little raspy voice.
you could announce the next fight, right?
I don't know.
Eric could take over carrying the money bags.
Right. That's
Yes,
right.
yes.
That's right. I like
indeed.
that. I like the position better.
Oh, man. Well, Eric and Liz, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a whole bunch of fun. And
was.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you for
Thank
having
you,
us. That was
guys.
a blast.
Awesome.
You guys are
Awesome.
always great
Thank you.
supporters, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
buddy.
you.
Bye-bye now.